I forgot to do one combat, which was right here. And what happened was we had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attack this 11 in the woods and rolled like a 3, I forget what it was, or a 2. And both sides got a D1. So all these got a D1 and this one got a D1. So during the disruption removal phase, the headquarters here took these two off. This one had to roll, and this one, oh, this one could be attached because it's a asset, could be attached to this regiment. So that one was removed. So this one had to roll, and you needed a 1, 2, or 3, but you have to subtract 1 because you're in a zone of control, and I got a 2. So all the disruptions came off. Then we rolled for this one, and he missed. So the Americans, the electronic control jamming succeeded here and here. So you cannot remove disruption levels if your headquarters is being electronically jammed because you're not in command range. Now it does, it doesn't seem to affect anybody. The Germans have their own command, and we were able to roll for this, but we missed. This one missed. The helicopter missed. You had to add 1 zone of control. This one missed. Wasn't doing good with the Americans. And this one, in zone of control, missed. And this headquarters could not get that one to remove a disruption because it's being electronically jammed. And one other thing I wanted to state, what I did with some Americans last turn was I moved, this one can be removed, I moved this tank an extra movement point. You can go extra movement points and then add disruption levels to it. And that's what I did with this tank. And since he's next to a headquarters, it's no big deal. It'll just get removed. And I've done that with the headquarters over here too. I moved it an extra movement point, put a disruption level on it, and then during the disruption removal phase, it comes off. So I do that a lot with units trying to get to the front if they're in no danger of being attacked. So that's it. A lot of disruptions didn't come off for the Soviets back in their AA guns here, but these ones worked here. I had a couple disruptions here. This one was at a 3. The headquarters moved it to 2, and then I rolled a 1 and moved that one down. So a lot of disruptions removed. So I'm just going to do the depletion for the air defense units and artillery, get them turned back over. Then I'm going to do maneuver, and I already started the maneuver. You can see I maneuvered around this area, but I'll finish the maneuver movement for the Soviets. What I want to do is come in this area and just threaten back here as much as I can, but I got to be careful of this force coming behind me, so kind of got to watch it. That means I'm probably going to have to pull the 18th even more down this way, but we'll see. And the Soviets get no units on the board still. All that still can come on, and a lot of it is the airborne and the artillery, which, man, the artillery is what I'm waiting for. It gives me a lot of artillery guns. So I just want to show you like a maneuver I'll do. Now, I'm moving the 6 Guards Tank Division in this area. This is the mechanized portion of it. I want it to protect its flank. This is looks like a very important hex I would like to have. Now if I move into it, I'm next to a zone of control dot. That means I have to engage it, but guess what? I'm going to do it anyways. So during the maneuver supply check, now like I said before, I don't go through my every piece in the army, turn it all over, then go back and move them all. I just go ahead and move them and then flip them during the movement phase if I want to. Now if you're playing against somebody and you want to be a stickler for rules, then you can flip them all first and then just flip them back over again if you decide not to move it, But this, to go into this hex, it's a lower elevation, so that won't cost me. The woods cost me 2. The river is an extra 1, so it's 3. To move next to the zone of control dot is 4. So just to go 1 costs me 4. And then I want to flip it. It's going to cost me 5 to do that maneuver. But I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to make sure I get my headquarters unit next to him. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there, just so I can, because he's going to have to tack that unit, and he'll probably get one disruption on it, and then the headquarters will remove it. So I do stuff like that. And again, if you have 4 guys playing this game and you have one person concentrating on just the air, you know, you might want to start taking out headquarters. But for me, just to put a couple disruptions on the headquarters, it's just not good enough. I'd rather eliminate the tanks, but you know, maybe I can set up my air a little better where I take 2 bombing runs out of headquarters and eliminate it. So I might do that. Okay, so we started turn 4, and I think I already mentioned we zapped these headquarters here. So this one couldn't get this disruption off. But other than that, this one I thought we wouldn't be able to flip over to its moving side, but actually this command, it's an asset. So this divisional headquarters can command things 20 away, and it can get around this side, so it's not cut off. Then we got to make sure all regiment headquarters are in range of their divisional headquarters. The divisional headquarters are in range of their corps headquarters. Over here now, I moved an engineer across the woods, across this river, into this town, and then I flipped it in a zone of control. So it was only right there, but to move all of that, it cost me 7 movements. So, like I've told you before, I went ahead and put 1 disruption level on it for taking an extra move. This engineer I left in that spot because at the end of this movement, if it doesn't move its entire phase and it's on its non-moving side, I'm going to put an obstruction there, okay? So I want to start obstructing the movement of the Allies. And just to recap, so everybody knows what we do in the disruption removal step. The first thing you do, the Soviets are the first side. They have the initiative for the entire day. They go through every unit. Every unit that's next to a headquarters, you get to remove 1 disruption level. And the headquarters itself can remove 1 disruption level on itself in addition to 1 other unit. It doesn't matter how many units are next to a headquarters, they can only remove 1. Then you roll the dice. And you roll the dice for every piece that has a disruption. And you have to make sure you're within your supply span of your supply truck. And as long as you're in supply span, and it's not, you know, cut off by enemy units or zone of control, you can roll for that disruption. The supply unit cannot have more than 2 disruption levels on it. Okay. Now, the Soviets do all their side, then the Americans do their side. Then we go to the depletion fire step. And for that, all AA guns that are on their non-moving sides, you can now flip to their moving sides if they are in supply span of their supply units. Okay, and the same rules apply to them as it applies to the maneuver units. And they also cannot have more than 2 disruption levels on their supply unit. And if that's the case, you can turn them over. Now, any units that have integral supply, they're on their own. They don't have to worry about supply units. You can turn them over as long as they have less than 2 disruptions on it. So the Soviets go first, then the Americans go. When that's done, we go to the air allocation step. So we advance the units. Now, the Americans lost an F-15 was actually shot down. Or, you know, there was 2 half-a-flights. We combined one. That means you destroy one, the other one gets to use, and then they had another plane that was damaged. The Soviets had a MiG-31 damaged, and a MiG-27 damaged, and another one half-flight. So here's the stack of planes that all will be able to come in starting on turn 2. These all have been damaged. So quite a stack there going on. anyways, then you move everything that's in the fuel rearm into the ready box, and then you allocate it. So I've got them all written down, what I want done. Same for the Soviets go first, NATO goes second. Now we have the maneuver helicopter check phase. Now this is done right before your side's movement. So the Soviets are first. You turn every piece over, and again, I don't do it, I don't go through every piece, just start turning over. You can kind of work it out as you're moving. You just go, oh, I'm going to move this guy. You turn him over, move. If you want to turn him back, it's going to cost you an extra movement point. But you go that side first. Now, in order to move, you have to be in command span of your headquarters. And it doesn't matter how many disruptions that headquarters has on it, I believe. I can double check, but pretty sure it's that way. So I've done all the movement, and that's where we're at. We are now starting the combat phase. Now, as a NATO unit, we have pretty good artillery now in range of everything, but to me, I'm seeing engagements going on here. We're seeing engagement here. We're seeing engagements here and here. See, even though you're next to these units, they're not a zone of control dot, so you're not engaged, so I don't have to attack. So as far as NATO knows, you're attacking this, you have to attack that, and then that's it. So you see what you want to do with your artillery. Now the only one I might have to make a real decision on is this one, because I either stay there and get caught and use it, or I back up and get it out of there. So we'll see. And I'm thinking right now, I've already lost one artillery gun, and I really don't want to lose any more. I'm probably not going to use this one, and I'm going to back it up and get it out of there. Because we need to get, NATO has two regiments coming on this turn. One's right here, so we get help in this area, and one's right here, coming in on this side. Okay, we got Canadians coming in I can bring in here. We have those mechanized that can come in this side, so I can get these units to fill this gap right here. So, anyways, it's the Soviets' turn, and we will start with combat. Okay, so here we are on the attack. Now, I have 3 artillery units that are lined up to deliver BC-1, the other 2 minefields. Now, they say you can wait till all combat and artillery's done, so the artillery can't be counter battery. But I believe that's an option, because I want to fire one first right now. And I'm going to fire this one. I believe I kept them out of range. And we're going to go ahead and fire a BC unit with that one. Again, you have to have all this written down in the air allocation step. And we will put another point on that has to get subtracted from the Russians. And we're going to fire a chemical into this town. Now this one's going to be long lasting. That means it goes for the rest of the game. So the Hex gets 1. So he will go to a 2. And each surrounded unit will get 1. So he's going to get 1. So they all have 1 surrounding them. Now I'm going to go ahead and do maneuver combat. And we're going to go ahead and attack this one right here. He's an engineer on his prepared side, so he is double to a 10. I'm going to go ahead and use 1 gun. This one. And would you guys like to counter battery? I think nothing reaches. This one can, but I think I want to back this one up. I don't feel like losing that artillery gun right now. I think we're going to be in trouble here. We got to get forces over here. So I'm probably going to really get that guy, try to get him out of here. So we're not going to counter battery, but we will go ahead and use 1 artillery gun to hit the tank. So I think I'm going to use 1 here, Because these two, if I want, I can still use in this area. So I'm going to use one that's farther away that I know can't reach up here, and it has to be used in this area. So we'll go ahead and do one there. So I'm going to roll both dice same time. Dark as always for NATO. So it looks like it's a 1 and a 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and take these two, and we're going to gauge that one. Remember, one disruption, it has to be engaged. And I'm going to use one artillery unit for that. So I had to double check the roll here because I don't remember all the time. But if an enemy unit moves next to an artillery gun or an AA gun, which is what happened last turn, the unit doesn't have to be flipped. It's only when the Americans move into the Soviets or the phasing player moves into the non-phasing player. So they're good. And that means that's about it. So good, I have some good artillery here, and we are gonna hit this now. We're gonna do what we can. I'd like to get rid of that, start hitting this, and get these units in here. We're gonna start breaking this up right here, and I got plenty of artillery to do it with. I think that's the end of the Soviets' attack. So at the end, I'm gonna use the Frogger. It will be fired. And we are going to drop a minefield right here. I want to block reinforcements getting over here. I'm going to use the one that's 15 hexes away and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15. We can drop one right there. Boom. I want to stop anything coming up this way. Okay? That is the end of the Soviets' turn. So I'm going to shift the Americans and I'll come back. Now, the Americans do get the German on here, a division, a regiment, I mean, and we're going to, I think, flood in this area and get these ones around. This is what I got to use to come into this area right here. We'll back this up. We're defending this line now, but I can use these Germans here and get these ones to take their place. We're going to do that. We're going to move the Canadian up to the minefield, has to stop. We're going to move these guys up to the minefield, has to stop. And all of these, like this is a armor division, it's going in, but the mechanized, all this is artillery mechanized and support. We're going to back it up. We just got to back it up. We can't hold this river line anymore. We're going to back it up a little bit. Hey, they're pushing us back a little there, but we expect now to be engaged. Almost reminds me of the Gulf War, the first one. Remember, Schwarzenegger was very, very upset with Ed Franks, commander of the 7th Corps that was doing the left hook, and he wasn't engaging the Russians fast enough for Schwarzkopf. And he was waiting for him and waiting for him, and Schwarzkopf thought that the Republican Guard tank units were going to escape across Basra, the Euphrates River, and he was pissed. He almost fired them. But they eventually did engage, and once they engaged, you know, they tore up the Republican Guard. But anyways, I'll come back after I move the Americans. Just a couple reminders. I had the Russian engineers blow an obstruction here and obstruction there. And I went ahead and did it already, but at the end of the maneuver phase, this engineer, since no one's going to be able to touch him, blew another bridge here. So these two bridges are blown, but some units came across the bridge this way. So the Russian engineers are just going to be trying to put up obstructions here as much as they can. Minefield. The other minefields here, I got an engineer from the 1st Division assets coming down. Anyways, we moved the entire attack of the Americans into the Soviets here. So we're going to be engaging these two units, this unit, that. We're going to go ahead and finish him off with a gunship. Now over here in our threatened sector, I took what I could out of the Germans here, one of the regiments, and the 12th Panzer, and moved it as far as I could here. Actually gave, these ones were disrupted, remember, from the chemical attack. So they're in there. We got to block this. I didn't move that helicopter, did I? I took a gunship from here and the other gunship from here, and I'm going to go ahead and try to salvage this line. But I think what we'll do here is just back up, and we'll go ahead and engage that. So kind of got a nice little zone of control line here. I mean, they can move around this side, but not with much. I couldn't move this supply unit much, but I did back up the artillery here. So we do have a couple German artillery guns now. We have 4 American guns, but of course 3 of them were used. I only have 1 there, but you know, it is what it is. We're going to try to slow down this attack. And I brought the mechanized into this area to help. So these units didn't come through here. And then I'm bringing these ones over. And I think for most part I can start bringing these in. This mechanized can start filling in this in once we get by the minefield, and the division units are going to hit here. And I can even spread these out a little because I got the Germans coming in behind. So the entire NATO army is on the board except for the airborne, and the Soviets still have all this that comes in next turn. Well, the artillery guns, that's all of this will come in next turn, then all the airborne will come in. I'm not going to show you the air, even though we do have the helicopters here. Now I moved them. They were over here. I was going to take care of this zone, but we're going to take care of this area because it was vulnerable. So the 810s can combine with the helicopters now and attack. Unless I used the 94th here, but I don't think I did. I think I used the 3rd and the 223. I'll double check. But the 810s can combine with their numbers and attack the guy ahead of them. And then the F-117s, wherever his forward air controller is, he can go out there. Other jets can come in, and when they bomb a hex, the F-117s can put their attack factors on with that. So the Americans can really get some high A factors here on these air runs. And when I get to them, I'm not going to show you the air phase, but I'll show you those attacks when I do them. The air rounds are getting pretty exciting. We flew aircraft around for 16 turns before He finally said the last one had enough. The American EC stayed on right here. The Russian one stayed on there. But we had the F-117s come in here with this forward air controller, and it can attack and support any other bombers. It made its attack, and then while I was sitting there, it got attacked by an air-controlled Russian, and it lost a half a flight, but it was able to stay there. Unfortunately, the other aircraft, it could never combine its attack with the other ones, because one of them got aborted, and the A-10s did come in and do a joint attack with the helicopter. So we hit this tank that was there. Remember, it had no disruptions on it, and after the bombing runs, I think the F-117s combined one time with a bombing run. The A-10s hit it, combined with the helicopter joint attack, and we destroyed that tank. So now, because this was the forward air controller with a few aircraft, you know, it was surrounded in the woods. We could only go after this. But then I did take another air control aircraft, and I attacked the A-10s, and we put a half a flight. So I got a half a flight on the F-17s and a half a flight on the A-10. So one of those each aircraft will be removed in the airface. The main gun out here, the big gun out here was able to take a shot 18 away, so it was used. These other ones weren't allowed to shoot. And Americans didn't come in range of any, the Soviets didn't come in range of any of these AA guns over here. And we came in with some bombing runs on this, and we only disrupted it one more time. We went after the helicopter, we put 2 disruptions on it. That's about all for the bombing runs. Americans destroyed a Soviet tank here. Now this was the area interdiction hex, and I had 3 bombing runs in here. The first one I decided, okay, let's go after the headquarters, and I missed. I was like, okay, forget that, I just need to destroy the tank. So we ended up destroying this tank. Now what the F-15G Wild Weasel flew, as it's flying up, it's getting attacked by these. Now my guns did abort a couple planes over here, like fighters came up to protect the bombing runs here, but they were aborted by these guns. So there was only 2 American fighter groups on the board, and both of them, one attacked and shot down a drone. The drone was trying to make a run over here. Now the drone's cool because once it reaches its hex, it automatically sends the signal back, because it's not an automatic camera, digital, and it doesn't matter if it gets shot down. But we never reached our hex. It got shot down by an American air control, and then the other American air control got aborted by the guns, and that was it on the board. So there was no more American air control aircraft. And the Russians, we had 3 groups. So even though the bombing runs were coming in, we were dominating this area and not allowing any more deep runs, except the American F-15G. Once it's shown itself as an armed combat, I think on this one, it took out this, well, disrupted that 3 times. That's disrupted 3 times, and it kept, the Soviets just let it keep flying. They didn't bother to attack that one because I wanted my air control aircraft to protect my front line up here. And the Wild Weasel flew all the way back here. There's 3 disruptions. There's the 3 disruptions. These are all radar guns. There's a disruption. That had 3 disruptions. It was just because, remember, the F-15G can fire 10 times, and all it says in the rules is it can fire an arm missile. Well, I'm allowing it to either fire an arm or reacting 10 times. Even though there's 20 air rounds now, I'm still not allowing that to fire more than 10 times. And it fired 8 times around this area before it left. So it really did a number on radar air defense guns back there. So the American air power is really starting to take over here. Now, also, we took a bombing run on this guy, put 3 disruptions on this tank, and what a terrible roll this was. I mean, I wasn't rolling good in this air round for either side. I don't know how many 5s and 6s I rolled, but at least 10, 12 times 5 and 6s. Not good rolling for either side. So that finishes our turn 5. We're going to start turn 6. Turn 6 is nighttime. All spans, ranges are had. Okay, so we had just finished the combat phase for turn 6. And turn 6, it's nighttime, so it really slows down the operations. You can only move half your movement, and you have to -1 off your combat factors. And then air units can only fly that have underline B for close air support and underline A for air control, which NATO has way more than the Soviets. So the whole operation kind of slows down. Now our strategic goal is pretty much over. We were trying to get in Beirut before the Germans arrived and before nighttime, and we were going to back it up with the 6, but because we had a hole in this area, we start pushing the 6 guards through here, and they still have an, easy time to get through here, but the Canadian regiment's coming, and behind is another German 36 Panzer unit coming. So it's going to get bogged down. Now you can see what happens here once the strategic and operational movement kind of stops. And it took 6 turns basically. It's going to come to a stop. The entire line is going to be engaged. Once they become engaged, you have to plan like offensive options in certain areas to try to punch through, because otherwise the units are engaged with each other. They're just attacking each other, okay, because they're having to battle, and it's pretty much an attrition, and artillery is ruling the battlefield at this point, and they're disrupting all the attacks along the line. So if you look along the lines, everything on both sides are disrupted, and that's just the way it's going to be going here for a while. Now it's going to turn into more of a tactic type game for the next, we still have 4 turns to go. And I don't know if I'm going to go all 4 turns, because playing little tactic maneuvers, is you're trying to trick the enemy and fake the enemy out. Well, when you're playing solo, that's hard to do. But I'm going to take a few more turns still. But at the end of the first day, we'll see where the points add up. Now, as the Soviets, I don't think I'm going to push for Beirut anymore. It's not really going to be feasible, and I'm probably just going to keep the line engaged here and not try to advance any further, and try to see what the 6th can do. Now, in the 51st, the 156th Regiment and the 158th Regiment are down to 1 tank battalion. Now, you're allowed to reform these in the scenario 12. You can reform 4 combat regiments, and I'm about to take these off the board. I think I might do it next turn, and I have to remove these tanks, and then they can re-enter fully as a full regiment. I'm about ready to do that, because I'm about ready to not pursue any more offensives in this area. The Soviets failed in taking Beirut, and it's going to be hard to get by this unless I use some more NBC. And I'm like I said, maybe next turn, because I would like to get in the city, and I'm kind of having a chance, but it's going to be difficult. There's just too much artillery. The NATO air support's really going to jack this up. We're going to go to the air phase right now on turn 6, and they'll probably do some damage here. I forget what their forward air controller is for NATO, but we have the F-15E Strike Eagles and the F-111 bombers coming in, and they'll take out a couple units. So I'll see where I have the forward air controller, but I want to say my forward air controller was in this area, because this was danger of getting pushed through and not over here, but that's too bad for that. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. Next turn, the Soviets are going to have a lot of artillery guns that'll going to come and play here and help out. And we'll see if we can destroy some more units, especially in this area is where I'm trying to make the push. But we'll see. Our Soviets, offensive capability and initiative may come to an end here. We'll see how next turn goes. And one rule I changed was when I was coming up to the minefield, I stopped because you can't cross a minefield. However, if you have an engineer, which the Canadians did, for an extra movement point, the engineer could just move on the minefield, and then everybody else for an extra movement point can move across. That's why you see the Canadians here. In the previous, you saw them stopped here, but that was wrong. So they got through. I slowed them down a little bit just having to do that, but because they had an engineer, they made it out this far and got through. But still, we slowed them down. Well, that'll wrap it up for this. You can see we've kind of gone into a stalemate as far as operations went, and we're just attacking all along the front, and artillery is going to go back and forth trying to disrupt these attacks. And I would probably try to use another nuke here in this spot just to blow it open, but I have to reform 2 of these tank units. They've been decimated. And so it's almost like you would just probably either try to hold this or pull back, and it'll come up to how many points a side gets.
So at the end of day one, we've done everything but bring
I had
on
to drop
the
airborne
airborne.
division of the Soviets, but I had
But
to
at
back
the end of
this
the
up right
day,
now.
you add up ground units destroyed.
At this point, it is,
And if we don't
again
count
counting
any of the
the points
NBC
that were used
weapons,
for the NBC
the
weapons. The
game is
Soviets
at a
used,
draw.
it's
It's
a
a
plus
Soviet
3 in attack
5
favor. So
or a
basically,
6, forget the exact
that's a
number,
NATO tactical
and
victory
that's a
right there.
draw so far.
We need to get
Now,
at least
when you
6.
add in the 4 points
So
to because of the
it's
NBC. Now
doable.
remember, my rule with NBC is anytime
Now remember,
either side
for
uses
NBC
them, you're going to
weapons,
get hit with
I
the
give
points.
you a point every time a
So
weapon is used, or
there's
every
4
time NATO
points that the
uses one
Soviets
also.
have to subtract
So
off
those
this
will
number.
balance
So
out
they ended up
if
with
NATO
like it was
uses
a
them.
3 or a 2, and that is a American or NATO marginal victory so
Now,
far.
if we don't do
So
that at all,
right now,
then
at
it
the end
would
of
just
day
be 2
one,
points right now,
it's a marginal victory
and
for NATO.
the Soviets would
But the
have
American,
5 points
the
actually,
Soviet airborne is going
and
to
then no other
drop
points
in
would be
right
subtracted
behind
from
this
using
town
NBC weapons.
of Beirut, right where
2
all
points for
these
using a nuclear tactical nuke.
artillery units and supply
So
units of the
it would,
Germans
it
are.
would be a
And
draw
we're
at
going to
this
see if
point.
we can't
So
come in
it's
the
definitely
back
doable.
here and jack up the Germans, and then we will push forward with the Soviets. But as I said before, I'm in the process of moving. Yet again, I had to pack it up, and probably in, I don't know, a few months, 6 months, I'll come back to it, set it up the way it is because I have it all on video, and we'll go from there.